we're going to have a very fruitful and insightful session. And we are very honored to welcome our moderator for this session. So please join me in welcoming our partner from Vector Energy Advisory, Mr. Jack Kneeland. Welcome. All right. You'll be sitting the first chair. You prefer which side? I think that one is better. Yes, that's right. And of course, our panel, which consists of 7 executive panelists. I would like to welcome the chairman and CEO from Greenergy Solution. Welcome, Ruth P. Briones. Welcome, Ruth. Pleased to have you with us. Also joining us today from APAC Director from BayWa, Daniel. Welcome. Joining us today, the founder and exclusive committee from TRECA, Associate Professor Dr. Wirachai. Welcome. Today, we also honored to welcome Head of Business Development of Amarenco, Sengbusch. Welcome. My apology if I mispronounce any names. Thank you very much. I also welcome Managing Partner from Green Horizon Capital Partners, Michael. Welcome. And also joining us today, partner and co-chair of energy industry from Tilleke Gibbins, Joseph Tom Cowis. Welcome. I think you have also an AKA name. People call you Joe Tom today. A few people come and connect with me like, do we have Joe Tom with us today? All right, and last but not the least, our country head from Thailand, TotalEnergie Distributed Generation Asia from TotalEnergie, Kun Komsan Khenyotha ka. Pleased to have you once again. All right, and now I believe that we are all excited for this panel discussion, so I'll pass the stage to you, Jack. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to kick off the afternoon session with a very important topic on the challenges and difficulties of the energy transition. I know everyone has heard about the energy transition, and probably everyone in this room is involved in the energy transition in some way or another. But the energy transition means different things to different people and different things in different places. And so I'm very excited to take an opportunity with a very good panel here today. In fact, I'm calling this the super panel. I think this is maybe the biggest panel discussion I've ever been on. It's a really great group, lots of different opinions, so I think we'll have someone to talk about pretty much everything. So the event today is a solar and storage conference, but really we all know the energy transition is much, much broader than that. We've had very good discussions with each of the panelists in preparation for the event today. I know we have a lot of different opinions, so I won't spend any more time introducing the panel. I'll get on to the discussion with the super panel and expect that we'll have a super discussion. What I'll probably do is start off with asking each of the panelists to give themselves a very brief introduction. I'd love to be able to do it myself, but that's much too much talking, and so maybe I'll start to pass the microphone down, and each of the panelists can briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll kick off and get into the content of this discussion today. And start with you, if that's okay, Ruth.
Thank you, Jack. The rose among the thorns, but I'm very happy to be here. I thank you, Energy Box, for this opportunity to be here. And I'm Ruth P. Briones. I am the chairman, CEO of Greenergy Solutions. I used to be energy expert from Asian Development Bank, but I'm now a developer, solar and solar, wind, and biomass in the Philippines and some other countries in Asia. Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Gaefke. I'm looking after the APAC region for BayWa. BayWa is a very relatively big German renewable player now. We have about 4,500 people globally, installed about 5 gigawatt of projects globally, and have about 12 gigawatt in operation. In APAC, we are active in 8 countries. Thailand is our hub, our base for the region, and we installed over the last now 3-4 years in the region here 0.5 gigawatt of solar and wind projects. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Wirachai Roynarin. I'm a government service actually. I'm a lecturer in Rajamangala University of Thanyaburi, and we call Klong Hok. Okay, I'm a founder of Thailand Renewable Energy for Community Association that we call TRECA. That is about 15 years ago, but we do a lot of the academic and also the project with the government and also for the community. That we hope that this seminar we're going to develop some project for the energy box and also for Thailand Renewable Energy for Association as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jan van Sengbusch from Amarenco, Head of Business Development for Asia Pacific. So our business is a solar independent power producer. So we get involved in solar projects from the conception, design, engineering, financing, all the way down to owning the asset and managing those assets. So we operate in 14 different countries, Europe being our biggest market, as we're French-Irish originally. Have a big base in the Middle East as well, with Dubai being the head office. And for Asia Pacific, Singapore is the headquarters where I'm located. We have set up a joint venture in this market about a year ago with PSS, have rebranded as PSS Amarenco. And so for the Thai market, we have an ambition to deliver 0.5 gigawatt of meaningful solar assets by 2025. And we've been quite on track so far with this target. So looking forward to contributing to this market here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. Yep. Good afternoon. My name is Michiel Prompers. I'm the managing partner of Green Horizon Capital Partners. It's a corporate finance advisory firm in Hong Kong. We cover basically the whole region as well as globally. The firm is dedicated to the energy transition, segment, so very relevant, I guess, for today's panel. Pretty much focus on a number of aspects within the energy chain, from all kinds of renewables, whether selling solar assets, selling solar companies, to wind, to geothermal, etc. But also lately, actually, quite heavily involved in more like fundraisers for more on the technology aspects of the renewable energy value chain, which is actually quite interesting, because I guess the more that we progress, the more new technologies will come in play. And just interesting to see that a lot of companies are looking for funding to get their technologies operational.
Okay, thanks. My name is Joe Tomkowitz. I'm a partner at the law firm of Tilleke and Gibbins. Tilleke and Gibbins is Thailand's oldest law firm, but we also have offices in Vietnam, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Indonesia. I focus on energy law, traditional oil and gas to renewables. In the past, I was a general counsel for Chevron affiliates overseas and ExxonMobil. It's nice meeting you, and thanks to Energy Box for having this session.
Okay. Hi, nice to meet you again. Yeah. I have been speaking in this morning's session. So again, yeah, I'm from TotalEnergies. With this, okay, we are top 5 oil and gas, and our intention is that we want to be the top 5 renewable developer again for our target. Yeah. So right now we have like 12 gigawatt in our operations, and then in the 2025 we are going to have 35, and in the 2050 we target to have 100 gigawatt around the world. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much, Kun Khom-san. Thank you very much to the rest of the group. Very happy to start the discussion going. As I mentioned in the beginning, the energy transition does mean different things to different people, although I think we have some very common goals and common understanding of the urgency of the issue. What I'm going to do today with the panel is ask some individual questions to different groups. I don't want to go through everybody on the same question, but I also want the other panelists to please feel free to jump in. I know things will come up, and I'd like to keep this sort of very lively and interactive, and so please feel free at any time to make comments. But what I would like to do is start off with a question that addresses the point that I brought up, that the energy transition has different meanings to different people. And in discussing this in some of the preparations for the events, I know Michel, among others, had some interesting views. Maybe I thought, Michel, if you could kick us off with your understanding of the energy transition, then go
Sure.
from there.
Be happy to. So look, I guess my view on it is maybe perceived as potentially a bit contrarian compared to how most people look at it. Because look, I think if you look at the energy transition, it's kind of, you can almost look at it at a couple of different teams, right? And I think what I always find quite interesting is that the policies tend to be made in Washington, in New York, in London, with pretty much a very Western mindset. So I think the first aspect that I think is quite important is to just establish the reality that, emerging Asia is actually quite different than, say, Europe and the US, for that example, right? So simple things like the countries not being connected to each other through grids makes it obviously much more difficult to truly depend on non-baseload type of energy provision. So I think that's one aspect that is quite important. I think the other aspect that I think is quite important, and when you think about renewable energy transition, and it's kind of related to it, is that particularly for the region here, is what you really need is a baseload solution, right? So ultimately, I think it's fantastic that there's a lot of money going in from banks and investors into renewable energy space. But I think the key issue that the countries here need to deal with is like, okay, well, if we shut off this coal-fired power station, then there is a lot of baseload capacity that's suddenly out of the system, and you can't leave people without power, right? So I think that is kind of the challenge that I think we need to deal with. Now, then if you think about that, well, what does that mean? Look, really, baseload, it's really driven by either two things, right? Either it's going to be finding a really good solution for storage, which I think is, really getting there, but ultimately, I think relatively in the value chain, I would say that we're still in a nascent area for that. I think there's still a lot of improvements that you can do on efficiency and cost, etc. But I think that's one aspect. And the other aspect, which I think, and that's where I think people in the room may disagree, is that I actually think that, gas-fired power, like it or not, is going to be quite an important driver of the energy transition, right? Because you need that base load. And if everybody is, really focused on closing down coal-fired power station, which, I think it's good to the extent that you can do that, you need to have this base load backup, and my sense is that certainly gas-fired seems to be, right, well, at least where we are today, the most logical complementary fuel source to renewable energy.
Good, and thank you very much. I think the contrarian view is very appropriate and very important. I know we do all share the same goals, but there are different routes to take, and as you mentioned, I think Thailand's a great example of the gas-fired economy, the balance between gas and renewables. So with that, since the topic is Southeast Asia, maybe I'll ask some of the participants in the Southeast Asia from the locals to address the issue from their perspective. Dr. Wirachai, I know you're much more involved in Thailand in the solar industry. Maybe you have a similar, maybe a different viewpoint. Let's hear it.
Right, thank you. It was about 15 years ago that I formed the TRECA. TRECA is the Thailand Renewable Energy for Community Association. And it was that time I don't really much understand why I have to do this, because of one thing that I after I graduated from England, the diesel petroleum, they are about 50 Thai baht per liter. And then I think that in the future that going to have some problem about the fossil. And we found that TREC, we call TREC, we including about 52 universities together for academic and professor. What we're going to do is we want to do the appropriate technology for Thailand in renewable energy, that even a wind, a small one, on also not a huge one like in European or in the States, because we think that Thailand have some very good places for food, for reserve, and we think that we have to develop the education for the engineer, that we support both of you and everyone here, that we do a lot of the academic and also support the government on even a private sector. What happened is if we go forward without a local engineer, that we're going to have a problem, and also we cannot going further because of the engineer in local is very important for support both of you and everyone here for renewable energy. We did about 1,000 of the doctor degrees for 15 years, and also for master degree for renewable energy for academic. In that time, the petroleum going decrease and increase for time periods, you know. But for nowadays, we don't think that petroleum or fossil going to dropping down anymore. That we're going to support about renewable energy for green. That's why we call the project where we call the Fight for Greener of Thailand. This is for TRECA. You know, that for energy transition, for energy, whatever for fossil, support for reducing CO2 or PM 2.5. That is community going to accept the knowledge and also accept for the new technology. That is the target of our community for TRECA, for association. And I hope that for the next decade, for next 10 years or whatever, TRECA going to be the one that's going to support for the renewable energy in Thailand or even in Southeast Asia. Yeah.
Good. Well, thanks you. I hope so. Very good to hear the Thai view. Obviously, the former king, Rama IX, was a huge proponent of sustainability, and so there's very much of a bottom-up pride and strength of the concept here in Thailand. So good to hear from you about that. And what I may do in the panel is just to keep moving down this direction. I know both of the next panelists have been involved. I've known them both for many years, integrally involved in this topic. So may hand over to the two of you to wrap up this question.
Yeah, maybe quickly from my side again, I would like to take a broader view, want to take a German view today. Normally I take a Thai view after being in the industry here for 16, 17 years now. But I think comes back what you said. I think we have to have a holistic approach when we tackle the energy's transition, and it has to be obviously well planned. Taking now the German view, we see also what can go wrong at the moment. So we are struggling at the moment because we not planned the transition very well back in Germany. And again, it has to be an approach, a step-by-step approach where we're changing the economy to a fully green economy. But this cannot happen without a well-thought-out plan and a step-by-step approach. We need the base load. We still have issues on the costing when it comes to battery and other storage technologies. And I think that's very important that everybody in the communities, in the industries, with the government together, works together and again, plan well. Again, we learned it the hard way in Germany.
Okay, energy transition in the Philippines. Please allow me to talk about the Philippine scenario. We call it the energy transition pathway. We have the power development plan for 20 years. And we plan that in 2030, we have to have 35% of the energy mix, and 2040 will be a 50% of renewable energy. However, our question is, where is the 50% coming? The Philippines is one of the most vulnerable to impacts of climate change. We are almost destroyed by so many droughts, flooding, heat. Now, we are very happy that the government of the Philippines has drawn plans to make the Philippines an investment destination now. So lately, the Philippine government opened the door for investment for foreign investors. And the goal is to have green energy transition, clean energy transition that is just, inclusive, and sustainable. Sustainability must be towards environmental sustainability. That would respond to the impacts of climate change. We are now having the ban on coal power plant development. We are now retiring coal power plant, but then the one issue here is that the Philippine government is opening the doors for nuclear and natural gas. So seems there is, it's not balanced. I'm looking at a clean energy pathway. I know some countries are also on that level. One country has drawn a plan for power development for about 50% renewables, but in their power development plan, they have also 50% coal power plant. So it's not a clean energy transition anymore. So in this region, the clean energy transition is still a very far way to go. Southeast Asia is still the most vulnerable region to impacts of climate change. And we are the most polluted region also in the world. We are emitting 43% greenhouse gas emission in the region. And we are only looking at 50% renewables for the energy transition. Decarbonization is a pathway with long way to go. And transformation is still a long way to go.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I think that's sort of a very good window onto different ways to view the energy transition, and I share a lot of these views. I think we all believe the energy transition is a crucial path for humanity. I think we all work in this sector and want to see it succeed as soon as possible. But I think we can also, I sense some people share my views that there have been some ideological drivers that may have been impractical. I think we've learned some of those, some of the panelists mentioned some of the approaches may be top-down, and some of the activities and actions on the ground are also very important. So I think some very good points there. Well, what I'd like to do is to turn from the definition to a little more of an assessment of where we are. Obviously, the energy transition is one of sort of humanity's greatest goals, and something we've been embarking on for a long time. I think we all feel there's been positive progress. But I'd be curious where the panel feels we are. Are we making the progress we need? Are we moving forward? And what is their outlook? Kun Khom-san, could I start with you on this one?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Well, I think, Jack, thank you. As you said, actually, it's quite passive, starting from the past until now, by the way. I think with recently event of the COVID and let's say on those, the war, let's say, is make the oil price going up really high. So I think it's excellently the progress of the how to say the transitions. Yep. So in my point of view, I think well, right now we are in the good shape right now, and actually I agree with Michael that actually the transition needs to be, how to say, from the oil and gas, but it's view transition to be more gas, and then is transform to electricity, and and right now I think we are in the good shape to be there. Yep.
Great, thank you. How about Joseph? Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I guess we're talking about challenges now, and to me, I think Thompson, as he normally does, I've been on panels with him before, has highlighted it to me. Did any of us think the price of oil would be at $80 today? I guess if you did, you're smarter than I am, in particular from this summer or from even last year or January. And I think that's a huge driver for this transition. I think we see it. One of the challenges I'm looking at is does Thailand have an LNG hub? Can we bring LNG into Thailand and then export it again? What is that? These are basic questions around risk. These are basic questions around the structure of contracts that we have. And I think Kunakaran and I from Energy Absolute and the team were talking before about the model PPA coming out now. That type of certainty is important, so we understand the underlying economic terms. I don't see a lot of legal commonality throughout Asia in terms of the underlying contracts. I don't see the same type of commonality that I did or do in the oil and gas industry, so there's a maturity question here. Now, Frank Constant has been doing work in country here for years, and so I'm sure he's very simple and facile with the contracts that he works with. But is everyone? Are the new market entrants? Is BayWa, are you guys having the same type of familiarity as other companies that are looking at contracts? And so that contractual familiarity is important. How is the risk being spread? Take or pay obligations, warranties that you can pass along. These are all things that we struggle with. How about the underlying land consistency from Thailand? Can you purchase your land? Can you own your land? What type of lease requirements are they? Are they in English? Are they in Thai? As you move into Myanmar, as you move into Malaysia, as you move into other ASEAN countries, there's a lot of risk around all of that. And I think it's manageable risk, but I think it's risk that changes. And so one size fits all is not the case for ASEAN. I think we know that. If we went to the ASEAN Energy Business Forum this year, last year, the year before, that's a theme that's consistent. But at the same time, we're putting caps or goals that we're shooting for emission standards. They're certainly not the same from country to country. So you have a lot of elements that can create risk as you move from country to country, especially as you move over borders and as that product moves over borders. And so that's something we look at my firm, and when I'm on panels with Komsun and TotalEnergies throughout Singapore, or even with other folks in this panels, Amarenco, you know, a lot of these cross-border transactions, you have different issues that come up, and you almost need different deal teams to look at the terms and conditions. And so it's still pretty tricky, and it's still pretty young as an industry if we talk specifically about solar. And so there's a lot of growth and movement we can help with, but at the same time we have to manage that risk. So that'd be my response, Jack.
Good. Now, it's a very good one. I think that's, I'm sure a lot of people share your views on that. You know, unfortunately, we don't have Frank on the super panel at the moment, but he will be on the next panel, so we won't have to wait very long to hear his response on that one. But since you did bring up Daniel, and I know, Daniel does have views on this, maybe I will put you on the spot for another question.
Yeah, I think, let's be honest, I think if we really, I mean, I have a holistic approach, but we are here for solar and driving the renewable change. So we're obviously not on target. I mean, globally, we are far behind. I think all the COP numbers, which we're hearing every year, are probably nice fantasies. And again, if we are looking at Europe, when we're looking at Germany, I was sitting in Thailand on panels 10, 15 years ago when Germany was always given as this great example how doing things right. That changed. So again, all countries are far behind what they want to achieve. And we have, when you look at the targets, you look at 2030, you look at 2040, 2030 isn't 7 years from now. The problem, and this comes back also one topic which you mentioned, contracts are important and having standards. I think we all know that that's not the case in Asia, and it's in each country it's very different. That's part of doing business here. But team, in Germany we don't have enough installers at the moment. Even if we want to put 5 billions or trillions into the market, no chance. And it's a similar topic in Thailand. We need good electricians, we need good vocational students to install. So there's a lot of topics, and again, it comes back to that holistic approach to make it workable in the end. It's not an easy one.
Yeah. Great, thank you very much, and that's a good perspective. And certainly, I think Germany it has the world's attention on the energy sector these days. So good to have your perspective on that. Now, to some degree, opportunities and difficulties, opportunities and challenges can be two sides of the same coin. I think Kun Komsan mentioned that oil prices being very high are a surprise. They've been a challenge, causing some burdens around the world. But also, some of the tumults we're seeing today will drive some changes into the future. I think Daniel's right that certainly from a quantitative perspective, there's almost no doubt that we're behind the 8 ball, behind where we'd like to be. But I think there are also some positive things you can say. And so with that, I'd like to look to some of the more positive aspects and look at some of the opportunities and look at what we're doing right. And maybe I'll ask if Jan would kick this one off for us and hopefully have a positive view of some things here.
Yeah, of course. It's always good to have an optimistic view on this transition. I think if you look at it from our perspective as a solar developer, there's a say, obviously, of solar projects, and no puns intended, is that it often sits in the dark side because it's stealing land from projects that could otherwise be agricultural projects, residential projects. So I think there's really that opportunity to understand how these projects can be merged with different approaches, different systems, different ways to innovate. And one concept that I'm sure quite a few are familiar with that is the dual use of land, which we can also call agri-solar. So with agri-solar projects, you can actually have this ambition of utilizing the synergy of agricultural land with solar production, where there is a fit of harvesting energy and harvesting the crop at the same time. Obviously, it seems quite easy to say it like that. There's a lot of challenges around this. There's challenges around the legal frameworks, obviously, the not in my backyard as well, saying, as we say, farmers might be reluctant, obviously, to let solar developers approach these kind of systems, because ultimately they want to know what is the bottom line, what will be the impact of these projects on their productions of their crops. So, you know, at Amarenco, we've been doing this for the last 6 years. So we have done agri-solar, notably in Europe. We've done it over 44 megawatt peak of projects. Average project is 100 kilowatts. So we've got hundreds of projects, and it's been tested on top of 60 different varieties of crops. So when I mean tested, obviously it's a long process. You often need to start with a proof of concept. So, you know, if our approach generally is understanding, you know, the requirement of the farmers, what kind of crops they're growing. So let's say, you know, growing a tomato in Thailand is not the same as growing a tomato in France. So you may not be able to deploy the same type of agri-solar system here or in Europe. So you need to work with the local communities. You need to understand the farmers. You need to work with the research institutes as well to deploy these systems. So I think this brings a lot of good opportunities when we go with that momentum of dual use of land. Of course, dual use of land cannot be applied for rooftop projects. For instance, it's also a challenge to do it with floating. But if we talk about, you know, synergies as well, if we look at our ground mount projects, we can also find ways to regenerate the soil on these projects. I think it's important for solar developers when they're looking for land to find a land that they can repurpose, right? So we like to call it a regeneration electron. So it's not so much about providing a green electron, so a solar electron, but also how you regenerate the soil through the stewardship of that land. Different ways to do it. We like to, you know, think first of microforests. Different soil regeneration programs can involve, you know, small farming for the community as well. And I think, you know, this needs to be in the mindset of all the different, you know, energy players.
Great, thanks.
And sorry, one last thing. I think if we talk about the transition and, you know, the opportunities, no doubt as we're moving into this new energy transition, there will be a massive shift in green jobs. So there's definitely a big opportunity for the skill force to be retrained and gain some value in your different markets through this new skill force. Thank you.
Good, and thank you very much. And I think that's you make some very, very good points. You know, I do think one of the advantages of having been in the energy transition for some time is we're trying new technologies. I think Michel's hinted at this, and your point, especially with combined agriculture. You know, I remember not too long ago, this was sort of just ideas that just hadn't been tested. You know, now we're starting to see more and more of these ideas come to life and come to reality. You know, with that, I think one of the most exciting aspects of this or the biggest opportunities in recent years, in my view, has been the push from the industrial side. Obviously the push from the public, but, you know, renewable energy was largely government-driven a long time ago. In the West, I think to some degree was government-driven. In this region, we've seen a big industrial push, a lot of momentum is driven solar rooftops. And so I wanted to ask Kun Klomsan, who's been really at the heart of this opportunity, to address the same question and to the degree you'd like to discuss solar rooftops, but please, however you'd like to answer the question.
Yes, well, yes, actually it's in Thailand. I can say that we start the renewable energies by the feed-in tariff back into 10 years ago. But okay, unfortunately, the government just changed their policy and stopped to issue any feed-in tariff. But by industrial itself, actually, it you know, pressure to the market that okay, they need clean energies and based on the cost down of the PV module as well, it make that okay, the business model of the solar rooftop, the private PPA suddenly make the economically sense. And let's say that in Thailand right now, yeah, we can offer like more than 50% discount from the grid. So that is why actually right now the industrial, they also want to reduce their costs. and they want to use the green energies, and okay, the solar rooftop CNI actually is make a sense, and yeah, right now is how to say, is really successful here in Thailand for the solar rooftop CNI. Yep.
And I think where we talked about agro-industry, agro production is sort of a new emerging technology. Solar rooftops is certainly almost becoming mature in Thailand. I think so many of the major players here have panels and are moving on to do other energy improvements as well. So that's certainly been a huge opportunity. And I know, Ruth, you've been involved since the beginning and maybe have a different perspective. Would you like to talk about where you see some opportunities?
There's a lot of opportunity in the energy transition. Actually, I've been in this business for more than 10 years. And, you know, in the Philippines, and not only in the Philippines, the green energy transition is a big opportunity for communities, local government units, to have operate their own renewable energy. We are now planning to do some community-based solar project wherein the community will operate, plan everything on the solar project. And also the local government units have also to operate their renewable energy project under a public-private partnership scheme. So in the Philippines, and also in some countries that I am working with as a consultant, we organize communities and join them to plan, and at the same time create their own management system and look for financing, train them to be to do O&M, and then they have to look also select their own EPC. That's the only way to move forward, to enjoy the community and also the local government. One problem also is the issue on grid infrastructure. I experienced so much, wherein for one project, for about 125 megawatt project, the grid is about 41 kilometers, and no investors will come in. So what will we do? We look at the point that we have to expand more, make that 125 megawatt into 300 megawatt in order to get access to the nearest grid, which is about 50 kilometers. And the investors say, no, we cannot fund that. It's not even bankable. Again, can we expand this to 500 megawatt? Okay, let's do that, 500 megawatt. Renewable energy development in Asia, or Southeast Asia for that matter, it's not easy. Somebody mentioned about land acquisition. Foreigners cannot own land. They could only lease. But how much land could be leased by a foreign investor? And then there's another issue. What happened to grid infrastructure? And also the policies, the energy policies that will not favor foreign partners. So we talk with the government, we talk with the Congress, we lobby. I lobbied so hard for the 100% foreign investment in the Philippines starting 2008. I went to Congress and discussed that the sun is not a natural owned resources. We never own the wind. It's not our natural resource. So why can we enforce it's a kinetic energy, right? So it's energy that also the solar source is not owned by any country in the world. Yeah, so it cannot be, the 40-60 thing is not applicable. So with now we are very lucky to, as an energy policy expert, I'm now working to establish a lot of solar project farm that will be owned by the communities and owned by the local government units, mayors, governors. So these entities own their own solar farm. So we just need to negotiate with investment. There's a great opportunity for any country in the ASEAN to do community-based solar project. I saw a lot of experiences in Europe, like Germany, and in America. There's a lot of community-based solar there. And with those experiences, I think Energy Transition Asia, there's a big opportunity for investors to come over.
Great, thank you very much, Ruth. That's a very good perspective. So in a minute, I'm going to transition to some of the tougher issues and look at the difficulties and challenges. But I know when Ruth mentioned community so many times, Dr. Wirachai was lit up a little bit. I know this is your topic. So maybe I want to see if you wanted to talk a little bit about opportunities and the community.
Right, thank you. If we talk in Thailand now, the big issue for, we just finished APEC, right? For meeting, we call BCG model, right? This government support very well in the policy in BCG model because Thailand, we want to be the one that we concerned about the food reserve, but we want to go along with the COP26 and COP27 that will coming very soon. That for Thailand now, I think for the energy transition for Thailand is going to be the EV charging station. The EV charging station is the most extremely good business in Thailand now, because we are focused that in the next 5 years we're going to stop use fossil for the engine. Okay, that is not going to produce anymore in Thailand. That is the target for Thailand now. And if you see that for Thailand, it have 70 provinces, that we have about 70,000 villages, 70,000 villages, you know, that going to install the EV charging station for community, you know, because we cannot have in a petroleum or gas station that we cannot put the EV station in the petroleum because in case of fire, accident, or something like that, that's going to have a explosive bomb, a little one, right? But anyway, if you can see the huge market for renewable energy is because of the grid or national grid cannot support even one EV car, about 1 million EV car that you're going to have a big power plant, maybe one more gigawatt power plant, you know. That like Ian and Jan say that everyone now in Thailand looking for the land and the place that is going to install the charging station for community. Because even in community, they have the land, but the land is occupied by the farmer, you know, like a 𝒂𒏂�𒒐𝒓 or something like that, Jan said that. But the charging station have to be the hybrid one, like a small wind machine with the solar and with lithium, and also with the national grid. That is, we're going to have the model for the TRECA. TRECA, we have a 7,000 village now in the pipeline of our community for the TRECA, that we're going to install about 7,000 of EV charging station that will have a lot of energy consumption from renewable energy, because the grid, national grid, is not enough. You know, we call ZBV, zero emission battery vehicle. This is very huge value of the renewable energy target and market now. And I think that this BCG model going to support very well from the government and from local government as well, and benefit to the farmer, benefit to community, and also CO2 reduction and PM 2.5 that we focus for BCG model. And as I'm a president and a former of TRECA, that we're going to do this project with the investor and with the technology that we have to transfer to education, of course, for the technical term and local engineer, and also the EPC, also O&M, that then we need a lot of technical. We need a lot of students to support to the local community. That is, that's why we focus in this, and this is very huge market for everyone to come to join in EV station charge in community for Thailand. And I think this is the big issue, and going to be the grid transition from the fossil to the renewable energy. And we hope that 50% from fossil now, the power plant, even the gas, LPG, fossil, mine, coal, going to change to the electricity, because they don't have a lot of chance to sell the petroleum or to gas to the engine, because in 5 year time, we are going to stop closing for the petroleum line of the car. This is the one that I think that everyone here have to go for this, the route. And I think that everyone welcome to do the business in Thailand. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. I think it does a very good job of tying together some of the big picture government policies all the way down to the community, down to individual action. And so thank you for that. So what I would do now is to turn our attention to some of the barriers. And obviously there's a positive view of barriers. Barriers are things we have to overcome and things we have to improve. And so maybe what I'll do is ask Michiel, if you would, talk a bit about some of the barriers you see to the positive developments we'd all like to see, and maybe what we can do to overcome some of those.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think certainly if you take a look at, if you're selling renewable businesses in the region, right, I think, or even developing, I think one of the most important aspects is financeability. And my sense is that the countries that get the framework right, as you were referring to, that means that PPAs become bankable, right? And on the back of that, you can really drive your renewable energy agenda. And I think, you know, if you regionally, and I guess well, I guess there is two aspects here, right? You have different countries with different approaches, like for example, Vietnam, where the solar PPAs are not bankable. And so what does that mean, right? The only people that can really get involved are people with very big balance sheets that can put everything on balance sheet, but there is no non-recourse financing available. People have tried that, but it just doesn't work as of yet because of the clauses that the PPAs will entail. So I think that is certainly a challenge, and I think that requires, well, in a country like Vietnam, that really requires a policy change. And I think it's just going to be a matter of time where investors need to keep lobbying with the government to try and push them in the right direction. At the same time, I think if you take a look at, well, financing, like for example for solar rooftop planners, which is something that is very relevant to a lot of people here. Look, I think a lot of my clients seem to have difficulties to get project finance for small rooftop solar projects, and they end up having to upfront 100% of the equity, and then effectively at the point when they've built maybe 10 or 15 megawatts, they can then put financing on top of it. Now, I do think that again is something that is basically a hurdle, because it does mean that the people that can actually develop these type of assets is somewhat limited to the people at least that have sufficient capital to do that, and people that want to develop, say, 1 megawatt or half a megawatt, and that require bank financing to do that may not necessarily be in a position to kick that off, so to speak, from the start. So I think, in my mind, financing is a big challenge in the space, and I think once you get it right, it's really, it provides a lot of prospects for the energy sector altogether.
Great, thank you very much. And I actually very much agree with that point. In fact, I almost might take that up a level where bankability seems to look at a project level, is a PPA work. But I think you can almost look more broadly at the issue of financeability. Almost every day in the newspaper we hear commitments of billions of dollars being made by countries around the world. But a lot of this is on near commercial terms. There's giant loans available, but projects still have to meet the fundamentals required to make those loans. And I'm becoming somewhat concerned that there's a lot of money chasing too few good projects.
And maybe on that point, right, sorry to jump in here, but look, I do think that you're hitting the nail on the net here, but on the head, because ultimately I think what ends up happening is that the good projects tend to become so ridiculously expensive that, like for example, if you take a look at probably one of the most competitive markets in the region, or quite frankly the world, is Japan, right? And ultimately, if you look at where assets are being sold there, it's just, in a way, it goes a bit against the nature of the ESG proposition, right? Where it's basically saying, well, we're doing something good for the world, but in the end, what ends up happening is that very few people make ridiculous amounts of money because they were added at the right point in time and just sit on that one golden asset, so to speak, or this group of assets that they can then flip for for a lot of money. So I agree with your assessment there.
Great, thank you. To keep going, and now that Joe has the microphone, I think you're the perfect one to pick this up. I know you already talked a little bit earlier about barriers, but now that may have a bit more context, maybe you could add a bit to that and hopefully look at some positive ways we can address those.
Yeah, I think of what Ajahn Wirachai was saying earlier, and even Komsan, is who's going to do this? You know, who are the people who are in the pipeline? And I'm looking out at my good friend Kunar Tit here, who spent years at Chevron developing STEM, science, technology, education, and math, spending time going down, handing out scholarships at Chulalongkorn to make sure we had a pipeline of oil and gas engineers available. Now, TRECA is not going to do that yet. It's not big enough. But who is going to? What association is going to make sure that that pipeline is in place? Maybe it's not as high a technical requirement, or maybe it is. But do we have contracts that look for quota, national quota, from region to region? I'm not seeing that. Are we going to have a sophisticated enough staff to manage these larger projects like you're just talking about? The multi-gigawatt projects that are going to need local content to speak in Thai, to act in Thai? And if we're seeing that deficiency now, I think we should have learned from the past, the 1985, 1995, the times where the oil and gas industry ran out of downhole engineers. It was just astonishing that we couldn't do better over time as a mature industry. And are those same problems going to plague the development and even the growth in the early stages? And so I think about that. There's nothing inherently legal about that, but I always look at these contracts and say, who are my key payers when this changes hands? Who's the guy the other guy is going to want to make sure goes with the asset as a key player? And right now I have difficulty identifying that, because I would imagine at Amarenco, at Total, at BayWa, they're bringing folks in who are extremely competent, or there are folks here, but we're still short. And we're borrowing from around the globe to finance projects as they come up with people, and then we move them. But there's simply not enough. And so I think a more rigorous planning comes in, and I think that's where the department, you know, the energy department here does a great job of having initiatives and looking for talent and promoting talent. And I think that's something that the leaders on this table are intrinsically aware of. They know we're going to be short. We need to get more senior leaders. We were just discussing that earlier, is you're always looking for good managers, right? And it's an odd thing to think that you're going to hire 20-year employees. We need more 20-year employees. That's usually not the shortfall, right? And so you're looking for people for help. And so I think that's a great challenge to have. I think it means more employment. I think it means longer employment. But I don't know how we do that to meet, because the energy transition is bringing a lot of new problems. And so I think, you know, we need institutions like the one you're running to help us, you know, map that out as a national level, and then bring that to ASEAN as a regional level to make sure we can have that information sharing.
Great, perfect. Thank you very much. And now, as you start to mention the region and ASEAN, I think that's, maybe we should try to take the conversation a little bit closer to home and look at what these issues really mean on the ground here. What makes this region different than other regions, what's important here. You know, one of my observations is ASEAN as a manufacturing hub has really had the industrial push from international companies and the ability to address that energy. May I start off with Kun Komsan and see if you agree with that, and tell us more about how you see things on the ground.
Well, frankly speaking, ASEAN seems that we are ASEAN, let's say, but actually it's totally different in each country. So yeah, once I have the meeting with another country head in my organizations, so everybody face the different challenge. So it means that I can say we cannot, if we succeed here in Thailand, we cannot copy the same business model and just take it and implement it into Vietnam, for example. We cannot do that. So, and yeah, the regulation is something which is in every country is different. We cannot sign the PPA in Cambodia, for example. So that is something is really, how to say, is really challenge to the multinational company to be, you know, invest in these regions. But okay, by the way, is quite successful from our teams. Actually, right now this year we signed more than 100 megawatts for just only for the distributed generations. who knows? In the beginning, we just said that okay, if you want to have the big portfolio on the renewable energy, you need to develop the utility size or scales. But suddenly, yeah, for our teams, for DNG in Southeast Asia, we suddenly signed 1 year more than 100 megawatt. So that is something that we can do. And okay, once we sign this year 100 megawatt, next year it should be 200 megawatt, 300 megawatt. So that is the thing. But well, it's not easy, I can say. And well, partnership is really important for me. Yeah. So in each country is different, and you need to work with the local player. You need to have somebody who understands well in the countries. Yeah, to be success. Yes.
Right.
I think this is the point when we say we're not promising future volume, right? Okay.
Thank you. Yep. No, so that's a very interesting perspective. You know, one might think that with having some similar industrial processes, similar clients, that the challenges across countries could be less. But it shows that even in an industry that's has a lot of similarities, the different countries present a lot of challenges, and I can imagine what that's like in industries that don't have those similarities. I know, Jan, you were talking about some of the different activities around the region and different business models you're in. Would you like to share any of your insights onto what makes Southeast Asia unique?
You know, there's no doubt that in terms of growth, it's the biggest region, right? So it's the biggest region in terms of the capabilities to create new jobs, but also on the energy demand side, the growth will be tremendous. There is for sure issues, as Michiel mentioned, with the project financing, this transition. Which I think we can learn here from Europe. A lot of our projects, unfortunately, at this stage, we typically go full equity, which is not the ultimate model. Very often, you need to wait a couple of years until you can aggregate a certain portfolio and be able to refinance. However, in Europe, we're seeing a little bit of a different maturity where there are different platforms, more innovative platforms to do project financing. So if you look at crowdfunding, for instance, this is a topic in Europe that is becoming quite hot and quite successful. And this is something that we've personally at Amarenco we've spent some time to find these right crowdfunding platform in the market, but I think it's just the level of maturity is not quite there yet. So it'll be interesting to see that booming in the future, hopefully, because it is this part of the world is definitely the biggest growth market for the energy transition.
Great, thanks. And then maybe to wrap this question up, I know Daniel, you have a regional role, a regional perspective. Maybe you could also give us your insights into what makes Southeast Asia unique as a region, or anything you think the audience should see here.
No, I mean, again, I think Mistake and I often have still discussions with our board back in Germany. It's one region, should be similar like Europe. Obviously, it's not. It is completely separated. All markets, fully agree what you said, are very special. And you have to be very local. That's the reason why we have 8 country offices and with teams of 10 to 20 in all these markets, because you have to be local and develop from scratch. Again, comes back to your question, cash is not the problem. Let's be honest, it's projects and having good projects. And again, it's not easy to develop projects in Southeast Asia. And yes, I'm building projects here for the last 15 years, solar projects in Thailand and Southeast Asia. And Southeast Asia is a huge market. Indonesia always pops up as one of the biggest markets in the world. But let's also not kid ourselves. What happened here in the region over the last 3 or 4 years when it comes to renewables? We had one boom market, which was Vietnam. And they did the same mistake as many other markets did before. Over much too high FIT, gigawatts built. Now a lot of projects are in curtailment. The market is dead, which doesn't help the industries. And what happened in other markets in Southeast Asia over the last 4 or 5 years? Most markets were very idle. Luckily, we had rooftop. We had this market, which was a purely commercial, stable market in Thailand. But what we need is, and this is, I think, very important as a developer, as a construction player, any player in this industry, stable regulations, open and fair access to the markets. The best should win the deals in the end. But stability is very important, not this up and down, changing every 1 or 2 years or every 3 or 4 years, and giving open access. As long as you don't have open access, and that's the main topic obviously in Southeast Asia, as long as especially the grid is not open, you cannot do commercial PPAs, then you cannot do wheeling, you cannot do other topics around commercial PPAs, then you have a problem, then the market will not evolve. And I think what we are seeing now, just to wrap it up, it will become for also manufacturing hubs like Malaysia, like Thailand, like Korea, whatever, very soon a very important factor if you will have a factory here or not, or they will go somewhere else. We're seeing players, Amazon is a good example. If they don't have access to PPAs, they cannot do 100% green, they will not build a data center in your country. And I think that, and this will be the same for other manufacturing companies in the future. So I think that pressure will be very high. And I think government have to understand that. To wrap it up.
Great, and I agree with you that as I mentioned earlier, I do think the pressure from the industrial side is one of the most powerful drivers we're seeing. So I mean, this has been a very good panel so far. I've kind of led with the questions, but I know everyone has so much to say. What I thought I'd do is wrap up maybe just by going down the line and asking if there's anything I missed, anything you'd like to add, if you think the audience should hear on the energy transition before we wrap up. And
Okay, energy transition in Southeast Asia is really important. One thing, on the other hand, I just want to answer the question, what makes Southeast Asia unique? Yep. Rapid expansion, rapid development or deployment of renewable energies there. However, population keep increasing. So Southeast Asia is becoming, there will be a lot of emerging economies in Southeast Asia. In the next 5 years, we are looking at Southeast Asia as one of the very powerful nations. Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. These are very powerful nations that will emerge. But then, there might be rapid expansion, a lot of population increase. However, energy access remains to be a problem. So we'll be needing a lot of money to keep up with the development economies, and also we have to address the technology gap. I keep on saying that energy transition be clean energy, and it should be just, inclusive, and sustainable.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, also some positive, obviously, after having the honor to live here and for so long. Southeast Asia, I fully agree with you, has a huge potential, and that's the reason why we're here, that's the reason why we do business. I think hopefully now also after some stagnation during COVID times, we're seeing positive changes, we're seeing now new policies, we're seeing new markets, we see some positive changes in the Philippines regarding ownership, so thank you for that. Even though other countries are changing back, but overall I think it's huge potential, and it's great to see that obviously the industry is growing. I can still remember 10, 15 years ago when it was very small, people were laughing at solar. So that's all changing, and that's great to see. And yeah, we're looking forward to build a lot of projects here in the future.
Right. What I want to say is that, for example, for Thailand model, we have a renewable energy PDP plan for about 20 years ago, that we target that Thailand going to be like a 50% going to use renewable energy. And what people said is it impossible to do that? But now Thailand have about nearly 15%, right, about renewable energy, and we have a lot of potential for the market, for Thailand, big market for renewable energy. What we're going to do is, as I am a lecturer, I'm a professor, that I'm going to support very well for the greener, Fight for Green of Thailand Greener, right? But what we want to do is we try to accept all technology from abroad, including with the modification, with the appropriate technology that is suitable for Thailand and Southeast Asia. That some of technology may be not suitable for our region. But what we're going to do is, I'm a professor in university. I'm going to teach all students to support academic support, and also, as John and everyone say that labor has to be the good quality of labor, and also technical support, engineer support, local engineer support. It's very big issue for running of the renewable energy for the market. For the time being now, what we're going to do is we hopefully that we can add our team for TRECA, that we come to join together. And I hope that I'm the one that even a little person that can support very well for everyone for the transition of the energy mix in the future. Yeah, thank you.
I think as Daniel mentioned, this market should be an open and free market for participants to compete in. And for that to happen, you obviously need the right policies to enable that. And, it needs to start as well with the policies to open up the grid freely. We're seeing a lot of that transition happening. Singapore had that a couple years back, where you're now able to sell electron virtually. Thailand is now trialing this through the Sandbox program, where ultimately it will allow IPPs such as ourselves to build a site and supply large customers from virtually. So for that to happen, you definitely need to have the right regulations in place, and it will take time, but it's the framework that needs to be set up for that transition to happen.
Okay, look, I think the only point I wanted to add at this point is, like, look, despite all the challenges that we've been discussing today, I think there is certainly also a lot of progress made. And I think particularly if you take a look at actually what it means for investors that want to come into the region, I would say that despite some of the challenges mentioned, there is a surplus of investor demand for projects in the region. I think there's a lot of capital to go around, and that will only get more. All the investors I'm talking to, they all have, green targets, so to speak, and that's just great for all of the developers here, because ultimately I think it means that alternative sources of capital are becoming available, which I think is a very positive. But the other point to note is that also investors are actually, because there is a lack of big projects generally in the region, it does mean that you can get, some external capital, equity capital earlier on in projects, and you can see like, pension funds willing to take construction risk. Something 5 years ago you would never have heard of that, and now basically everybody is playing that same game. So I do think that, certainly for the future, from a capital requirement, there's a lot of money chasing deals in Southeast Asia. Hopefully, pushing the progression towards a more greener region.
Great. I just saw we have about 10 minutes, so I'm going to speak very slowly. No, I mean, I think stakeholder engagement is huge with your regulators, with the folks who are in charge of the governance. Until those changes we're looking for catch up with us, I think you have to have constant engagement. And I know of only one way to do that in Thailand, and that's to have senior Thai staff that can go in and talk about your business plan and your needs. I know of no other way, and I know Compton does a great job in that, and I know all of you guys have great staff to do that. That's hugely important times like these, because you're going to have to take some of this, not on faith, but on discussions, and you're going to have to progress your projects that way while you seek greater clarity or greater liberality in these policies. It may not happen, and so to me, stakeholder engagement can sometimes carve a path forward to do some creative, doable solutions in Thailand and in Vietnam and elsewhere, but in particular in Thailand. So, thanks.
Well, yeah, get back to those energy transition, right? Actually, in my point of view is that actually the energy is transition itself. Yeah, we start with burning the wood, biomass, right? And then start to be use the coal and then the gas, and right now we're talking about renewable energies. Actually, the one word that I want to add is reliable and sustainable, and also securities. With this Total, we are the energy provider. So we need to make sure that, okay, right now we supply oil and gas. And once we transition, it need to be make sure that, okay, the people still have enough energy to consume. Yeah, that is the key that, okay, whatever is a transition, but okay, every people need to have the good life, right? So that is something that we need to ensure that we can meet. And every challenge, I think it could be, you know, solved by the partnership. So that's why, okay, Total, we looking for the partnership in everywhere that we operate. Yep. Finally, talking about the financing right now, everybody know that, okay, the cost of finance is very high. It's sometimes it's kill the projects. But well, for me, we need some more new product of the finance. And also the partnership with this, okay, we looking to work on that with the local player. Yep.
Great, thank you very much, Kun Konstantin. Thank you everybody for that very good wrap up. You know, I know we couldn't expect you to speak slowly for the entire last 10 minutes, but maybe what we'll do is take a minute and see if there's anyone in the audience that has any questions. It's probably very hard to pick from this fantastic panel, but I'll put that on, see if anyone would like to ask anything of anyone as a follow-up.
Anyone? You can simply raise your hands. Yes, please. You have one? Okay, thank you. Truly a super panel indeed, yes? It's like Marvels, kind of.
My name is 𝒂𝒏𝒂𝒕💔. I'm Engineering Solutions Director of PCS Thailand. Well, actually, anyone from the audience can reply, but well, I can ask to Daniel from BayWa. And Daniel, I mean, if we think, I mean, about the investors for renewable energy, what is the most top challenge in Thailand that they are facing with the difficulty, the top one? I'm sure there are a couple of, as we know, but the top one, which is what is the challenge here? Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to also hand that further down. I think from our side, I mean, again, it's just having access, right? At the moment, the last 5 or 6 years, the only option for all the renewable players here, pretty much, besides some special programs here and there, were rooftop projects. That's a very stable, good market. Good that it grown, and some players like Frank and Total and others obviously doing a very good job here to drive that, and it's a stable 800, 900, whatever gigawatt business every year. But obviously we didn't see much really on solar farms, wind, other projects, and that comes back to not having the ability to, for example, sign PPAs, commercial PPAs, having access to grid and other topics. It's still very much driven often by policies, by effort, by support schemes and so on, and I don't think we really need that anymore. It's more having an open market where we can sell to commercial customers, and I'm sure that will hopefully now, that transition will happen now quickly.
Okay, hope that answered your question. Thank you. Anyone would like to add to that? We're good. Okay, we have one more question over there from the gentleman. All right, because it's really rare opportunities, you know, to gain all our executive panelists on the stage, so please.
So everyone is talking about transition in terms of renewable energy, but no one's been talking about the transmission grid and the necessity to expand that or to increase its capacity so you can handle the transition. How do you think we can handle the expansion of the transmission grid? Is it going to fall on the government?
Who would like to answer that question? Okay, Shen-ka.
Well, again, I think that that is somehow nobody can pressure, right, to the government to do that. But by the way, in Thailand, I just give you an example that okay, there is the associations. I mean, industrial association locally, which is pushing a lot to the ERC, to the government that okay, it need to change because of this is competitiveness of the Thailand. Let's say that okay, in the near future, if you want to export the product into developed market, you need to have the renewable energy source from your productions. And okay, with that one, it means that with the current grid, it's not enough. The government need to improve on the, the regulations to have the net metering, to have the wheeling chart, and and finally, actually, it could be, expand into the regional grid because of Singapore need the green energy, but they don't have enough land. But okay, plenty of land in Laos. Then finally, yeah, that is something need to be pushing by the business. It's not talking about the good things, but okay, it need to pressure by the business. Yeah.
Solar in Australia. Singapore is actually doing solar in Australia, and they're going to send it by HVDC. They have a very large project planning for that.
All right.
Yeah, that's the Sun Cable project, right? 30 gigawatt. The biggest challenge will be obviously the cabling work around it and the security aspects of it. Cables coming all the way from Australia to going through Indonesia. I'm not sure if it hasn't officially been signed, but yeah, it's a quite ambitious one. 30 gigawatt of electricity coming through the ocean. You can only imagine the size of that cable. It'll be a lot of copper and aluminum.
And we saw what happened in the Baltic Sea with the gas pipeline. It's a risk.
Yeah.
Okay, you talk about transmission lines, grid interconnection. Most countries in the Southeast Asia have their own power development plan. However, when it comes to technology, most countries also are looking at decentralization. So, although there are grid modernization in each country also in Asia are looking at decentralized system, like distributed energy or grid projects. Solar can be installed on its own. So it's a decentralized system of solar PV, and they are located in off-grid areas. So we in the Philippines are not banking more on centralized system because it would be costly and there will be a lot of issues. Decentralization is more effective because it will also solve energy access, energy reliability, and energy security. So as of today, one energy transition must be using decentralized system. We have to go away from the grid.
Great. Well, I think that probably takes us to the end of this this session. Again, it was a super panel. I think it met all of my expectations. We've been up here talking for almost an hour and a half, and it seems to have gone by very, very quickly. Maybe we could probably do another hour and a half if we had it. So, with that, I'd like to thank the organizer of the Energy Box and thank all of the panelists who've spent so much time giving us so much good information. Hopefully, we'll have another hour and a half on another occasion. But
sure.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, and let's give it up for all of our panel discussion today. And please remain on the stage with us because on behalf of the organizer and also our co-sponsor, Ryzen, we have a little token of appreciation to present to all of you. So if I may, I would like to ask everyone to please stand up and then we'll give you a little gift today because we're really honored to have you all here discussing about these very important topics about opportunity, difficulties, chances, and all of those challenges we may face. So I have my beautiful ladies. Ladies, I think you can come from the side too. All right. We have a little gift for you. So on behalf of Energy Box, Ryzen, and also all of our strategic partners today, thank you very much for making this happen. Okay, ladies, well, look at the center camera. Smile beautifully.